Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. And I would like to say we getting in the water, but that is definitely not the case. I ain't getting into the doozy, not a chance. I've been there, done that, watched the race many times, broadcast the race, but one of those events that I look at with absolute envy and think to myself, I could never, ever do that. But here's somebody on our show this evening who not only can do it, has done it and has won it on 3 occasions, looking for number 4. Welcome to From the Boardroom to the Locker Room tonight, Christy McKenzie. Christy, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. So happy to be here.
So 8 days to go before the doozy. I guess preparations winding down. You taking a little bit of a break from training as we speak?
Yeah, so we are starting to taper a bit. Had a lovely rest on Monday and Tuesday after the last pre-race of the season. So yeah, body's starting to feel good. You're keen to get on the water now.
Let's go back. Where did it all start for you? What made you want to get into a canoe and paddle?
It started on the Umzimkhulu River. I used to live in Underberg with my family, and it was just something, yeah, for my family to do together on the weekends. My dad's done a few doozy marathons, and he put us and my younger brother Hamish and myself in the back of a boat with him, and we kind of developed our love for rivers from there. And yeah, when I realized that I was able to take this internationally, I started Flatwater Canoe Marathon so that I could get an opportunity to travel internationally. And that really, yeah, skyrocketed my
I
career.
guess a sport like yours is one that you have to be deeply in love with. It's not one that brings rewards and riches and fame.
For sure. Yeah, we don't get the funding that loads of other countries do when it comes to competing on an international stage. So definitely is something that you've got to do because you have a absolute passion for it. Although we do get local sponsors, so Eurosteel's my title sponsor. I do have a few other sponsors as well who are able to help athletes such as myself, and that really goes a long way.
What else did you do when you were at school, primary school and high school in terms of sport? What other sports did you partake in?
So I was super busy. I especially in my junior school years, part of just about every single sport that school had to offer. I used to love my triathlons. I was in squad swimming, made the Sisonke hockey team when I was in junior school, ran 1,500 meters for KZN in an SA meet. Yeah, and then kind of carried that on into high school, tried different sports like, tennis and basketball, and kind of did everything up until about grade 9, and then I started to focus a bit more on my running and paddling.
There are a lot of people, myself included, that are extremely envious of somebody like yourself who's got so much sporting talent, and yet you're also very well grounded educationally. I mean, after school, went and got yourself a degree. I presume that was driven by your parents, that they always realized that there's got to be something, to back you up, and canoeing's not going to make you a living for the rest of your life.
For sure. They've always been super supportive of my academic career as well. It actually was through sport that I came to study psychology. I was competing competitively probably from the age of 16, 17, and I came into contact with Dr. Kirsten van Heerden, who is a sports psychologist based here in Durban, phenomenal woman, and I went to go watch one of her lectures, took an absolute interest in the whole field, and decided to study psychology myself. I've graduated at the top of my class for honors, and I'm really looking forward to pursuing a master's in psychology moving forward as well.
It's changed tremendously, sport, from 20, 30 years ago. I mean, the old adage of you had a quarter orange at half time and you drank a little bit of water and you used whatever shoes you could find and off you went and you played. But mainly sports psychology and sports psychologists have become a very integral part of sport these days. It obviously plays a huge role in all sports, but how big a role does it play in a sport like yours where you are alone on the water in a canoe paddling against the rapids?
Sure. I've been seeing Dr. Kirsten van Heerden personally since 2017, and it's really impacted my personal life as well as my athletic career. Yeah, we've worked together to kind of get me into the best mental headspace to take on these challenges as best as possible. We've noticed that even stuff happening in your personal life can impact what's happening on the sports field. And in order to produce the best results, we kind of have to put ourselves in the best psychological position to do so. Yeah, it also comes with like a lot of training as well. You can find yourself a lot at peace mentally if you know that you've put the training in behind that. Yeah, and I think it's definitely been beneficial for me to have a psychologist of our own. I always punt punt that for anyone. I think everyone can benefit from that kind of psychological training, I guess.
Yeah, I'm glad you've spoken about it the way you have, because I think there's a perception that if somebody needs help, mental issues and mental well-being, it's very difficult for people to actually say, you know what, I'm struggling. And it's becoming more and more prevalent, particularly in our country, that mental health is something that is really a big issue and it needs to be spoken about. And it's not
Mhm.
something that people need to be ashamed of.
For sure. I definitely think that over the years, the stigma around it has been relieved somewhat. I do think we are, not only as a country, but just, worldwide, moving towards a state where people are more comfortable talking about mental health issues. And, there doesn't necessarily have to be an issue per se, but just to kind of chat to someone and have that community and that support system where you just kind of able to become the best version of yourself, regardless of whether or not you're struggling. It's always great to have that support to become, an even better version of yourself than you already are.
Absolutely. And I guess it's also something that you take into, I presume you're doing some chats, you're talking to girls and you're talking to guys, and particularly at school level. And I know the kind of pressure that these kids are under with their matric exams, with trying to perform on the field or on the water. It can get overwhelming.
Absolutely. And I've definitely felt that myself, particularly in university years. I was, trying to be a full-time athlete, still do my undergraduate and my honors degree. I was also, working, trying to juggle a job as well as still trying to fit in social life and friends and family. So it can be a hugely like high pressure environment that you put yourself in, especially as an elite athlete. And it's definitely taken some practice to navigate. But yeah, I think just having a great support system around you, having people that you are comfortable opening up to, whether that be a family member, a teacher, a friend, or a psychologist, I think it's super helpful to have that support.
Excellent advice. And it's interesting the way we're chatting now, and we'll talk more about your career in the doozy. I'm just so fascinated about what we're talking about right now. And I guess that there's a lot of issues, and I guess you've seen it, maybe not experienced it necessarily yourself, but parent pressure, that your parents are trying to encourage you, but it's sometimes putting extreme amounts of pressure on the kids. Do you find that often happening?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've experienced it in my own life as well. Don't get me wrong, I'm super grateful to my parents because I feel like to some extent that pressure is really great. It helps you become the best version of yourself. And they ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what your parents want for you, just for you to achieve everything they know that you are capable of. But for sure, it definitely puts pressure on their kids, can potentially create an environment of, anxiety, people struggling with depression and that sort of stuff. But I think having an environment where you can, have that open conversation with your parents as well and kind of have a little bit of pushback to say, like I am struggling and I really appreciate what you are doing for me, but, I need help here. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, if you approach your parents like that, I can't see many parents who aren't willing to listen.
Yeah, it's like I keep thinking of the Serena and her sister Venus Williams' life and how from a very early age. And I was watching a video the other day of Serena and her daughter. And the daughter's 3 years old. He's already got her on a tennis court and she's trying to coach her how to be a tennis player. And I'm just thinking to myself, you know, some of the greats of the game doesn't mean that their children need to follow in the parents' footsteps and necessarily are going to themselves be greats in the game. It must be very,
For
very
sure.
difficult to balance that.
For sure. I think, yeah, what is super important, and I've definitely seen it in my own family as well, is like we've been given the options or the tools to kind of make our own decisions. So we've certainly been exposed, to things that our parents maybe did before because it's all they know, but they've also kind of given us the environment, like sending us to, certain schools that offer a variety of things that we can then choose from and hone in on. So yeah, definitely have seen that sort of pressure come from parents specifically in sports if they've excelled themselves. But yeah, also a good learning curve for myself, one day when you become a parent, what not to do.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. We all think we're doing it right until we're those people in charge and have to make those tough decisions that our parents have always had to make. Right, let's get back into the canoe if we
For
can.
sure.
So we've had the serious stuff, and not that paddling the doozy is not serious, don't get me wrong. Going for number 4, does it ever get any easier?
Um, it does not.
Yeah.
I think there's a leveling up and there's always the next obstacle, the next opportunity. So for instance, maybe going for number 4, title, but you kind of that off when you're in the race itself and your obstacles that the race throws at you, which is just different every single year. So something that I just love about the doozy is that it's not the same. It is a river. It is changing. You are going to have various obstacles thrown at you that you weren't anticipating. And something that I love about it is that it's something that whoever deals with those obstacles being thrown at them the best tends to do quite well in the race. And I like to think of myself as someone who's fairly adaptable. And when challenges are thrown my way, I try and deal with those as best and as effectively as possible. So yeah, it never gets easier, just changes a bit and is always an exciting race for sure.
But I guess with the number of races that you've participated in, the experience will always help, because I guess unlike, let's just take the Comrades, for example, or any other road race or a track race, you don't have the same kind of challenges around each corner. You're running the track, the 400 meters from start to finish. It depends the number of times you have to run the track, and it's just repetitive. Yours is every moment of each leg of the doozy can throw up a new challenge.
Absolutely. Like I said, one of the best things about the race, it is super, super challenging. And I think experience, like just years and years of river racing, definitely helps you keep a calm head. It allows you to become accustomed with the changing environment and just how to deal with different situations as best as possible when they arise. Like we've had doozies where, it's been in flood and we've kind of been told 2 days before race day, or hang on, guys, you're actually running halfway to Durban because the rapids are too dangerous to actually paddle and get down safely. So you're kind of dealing with, obstacles like that. You may not have anticipated that much running, and now you've kind of got to deal with that extra mental challenge. So yeah, so I think years and years of experience in racing this event have definitely equipped me maybe better than someone who's just starting out, who may be super talented, but haven't kind of experienced the changes that the river can throw at you. So experience definitely helps with a race like this for sure.
I'm Louis Karpas. Join me from the boardroom to the locker room as we talk cricket with our cricketing correspondent, Brett Proctor, in the next edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. You can find us every evening, Monday through Friday, from 6 to 6:30. That's Brett Proctor joining me on From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. Now, as far as you're concerned, and I can hear the drive and obviously seen it in following your career, but perhaps a little bit of overtraining and fatigue put you out of your canoe for a short while. I guess that's helped you. You were forced to rest.
Yes, for sure. So I was struggling with chronic fatigue after Croatia last year, after I got back from Croatia, racing World Marathon Champs. Yeah, there. Fortunately, I had to pull out of my K1 event, and then my partner and I, Saskia Hockley, managed to get a silver in the K2. Yeah, but pretty much from then, I almost took a good 2 to 3 months where I wasn't training properly at all. Only picked it up again in December 2024.
Yeah.
And I think it's been really great for me. I think being able to take that forced rest was helpful. And it's definitely given me a new perspective coming into training again. Like when my body's super tired, ordinarily I would have pushed through something like that. But obviously, with the knowledge I have now after going through something like that, I'm more equipped to listen to my body and to say, hang on, maybe I need a break here. It's not
Yeah.
always the best to push through, because I think, yeah, especially being elite athletes, our pain threshold's really high. We think we need to stick it out and kind of grit it out and all of that kind of stuff. And that's not always the best approach.
Let the psychologists and the psychiatrists and all of those other people around you have to say, hey, enough is enough now, slow down. Just
Absolutely.
take us from people who are listening to us and explain in layman's terms the difference between a marathon and a doozy canoe race. What are the fundamental differences?
Sure. So marathon racing is it is super brutal. there's a lot more strength training required and involved. Strength training in terms of being in the gym, making sure that you have super explosive power. It's all on flat water, so there aren't any river rapids or anything like that involved. Everything's on flat water. You still do get out of your canoe to do a portage, which is, like a short section of the race where you have to jump out of your boat, run for a few hundred meters, and then get back in. And then with regards to like a race like the Doozy Canoe Marathon, it's a multiple stage event. So it's over 3 days, whereas the Flatwater Marathon is typically one day, 20 to 30 Ks long, and then the event's over. Whereas I feel like there's a different sort of mental challenge where you have to kind of maintain that consistency over 3 days, is super challenging. And that involves, like there's running with your boat. There is super big rapids, flat water on the dam as well. And Nanda Dam is 10 kilometers of flat water. So it's kind of like a culmination of everything, which is what makes the race so special and so different to any event I've ever raced before. Yeah, those are your main differences between the two.
And I guess one of the other main differences that you haven't mentioned, but you obviously are genuinely aware of, is on a flat water like a marathon, there's highly unlikely you're going to hit something that's going to break your canoe. With the Doozy, your equipment is extremely important to you.
Absolutely. I actually have experienced some people breaking paddles and stuff on a flatwater marathon before, but that is highly unlikely. Whereas, yeah, with the Doozy, you do have to be super careful. It's a lot more dangerous than a flatwater race, of course. The potential to get lucky with your splash cover is something that kind of keeps the water from spilling into the boat. Your splash, you can get hooked on things if you swim or you fall out your boat. Your feet can get hooked under rocks. So you do have to be super careful in a river race, and it does take a lot of practice to make sure that you are proficient enough to not do any harm to yourself or other paddlers.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us about a training regime. Where are you? How often every day are you training? And I say how often every day, because I know it's not just in the morning. It's not just a quick paddle in the morning and go, oh, I've trained today, I'm okay for the Doozy. It doesn't work like that.
No. Yeah. So the training regime at the moment, it has been touch and go with the fatigue I experienced last year, but I seem to be pretty much almost up to standard. I do train twice a day, every day, except for one day a week. We usually take one day a week as a rest day. I've been training with Matthew Bowman for the past 2 years, I think now. And yeah, for something like the Doozy, we do heat training or heat adaptation, which is kind of getting accustomed to the fact that we are going to be racing in extremely hot conditions down in the Doozy Valley. So, this could be anything from training in the heat of the day to wearing a thermal when you train in summer, which is, can feel unbearable sometimes. There's also a lot of tripping on the river to make sure that we know all the lines and you kind of know where you're going in the valley, as it can be easy to get lost if you haven't done that sort of preparation. And then just a lot of strength training in the gym, a lot of running training, a lot of obviously being on the dam and on the river, paddling training as well. So very cool event just because there's a lot of cross training and you have to be strong in every area. But yeah, that's kind of what my training's entailed this year.
Sounds like a lovely, easy day every day, Monday to Friday, and the rest on the weekend. Christy, obviously, a race like this, you need to pay a lot of attention to the rapids. You need to pay a lot of attention to all things that are considering and that can happen and go on around you. But you cannot do this without your seconds. Tell us a little bit about them and the role that they play in a race like the Doozy.
Oh my goodness, your seconds are so imperative. It's probably one of the best part of my racing to have their support and have them know what they are doing is just, it's such a help. So basically your seconds will do juice bottle changes for you because, day 2 of the Doozy, we're racing 46 kilometers. The 1 or 2 liter juice bags that we carry from the beginning doesn't get us through to the end. So your seconds will have juice bottle changes for you. They'll have spare paddles in case you break a paddle en route. They'll have toolkits in case you break your boat and you have to kind of stop and put that back together. And yeah, just generally making sure that you get to the finish line and safe and in one piece. And they obviously are super encouraging along the way as well. Like if you're really struggling and you still have 10 Ks left of your day and you see an encouraging face or hear an encouraging word from a parent or a second, it really goes a long way in helping you get to that finish line.
Most of the athletes that I've spoken to that do the Doozy, whether they are ones who are competing to win or just to complete the race, day 2 for you, is it also the most difficult of the 3 days?
For sure. I think day one I love just because there's a lot of running and I consider myself, fairly strong in that department. Day two is just the longest day. As I mentioned, it's 46 kilometers. And I think that the fact that the last 10 Ks of the day is on flat water where there's no assistance from the river, already kind of got day one behind you. So you're feeling tired. You still know that you have so far to go because you still have, another day three ahead of you. So I do find that that is a super mentally challenging day as well as physically challenging for most athletes. I certainly found the last 10 Ks of that day super grueling just because if you get to the dam and you don't have any assistance or no one around to help pull you that last 10 kilometers, it can be a very lonely place.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And a different start, I should say, this year. I guess that doesn't really make much difference, does it?
Yes, they have. So, I mean, I'm accustomed to the start point as they did run the start point in 2023 as well. It was the first time they ran
Mm.
it. So I think they are concerned about water quality going from the top by Ernie Pierce and in Maritzburg. So we're now starting at Bishopstorp. This is now a running start, and I feel is, that helps me as well. I really do enjoy my time running with the boat. So yeah, so I quite enjoy the start. Does unfortunately cut day one quite a bit shorter than we're accustomed to it being. And just because I do really enjoy my endurance part of the racing, as I do thrive the longer the race gets. That is a little bit of a shock to the system on day one because the race is so short. But yeah, I feel like the race organizers are doing the best they can to, keep the race going with the quality of the water and obviously just keeping the paddlers as safe as possible.
Now let's talk about the finish. Blue Lagoon. It must be absolutely so satisfying seeing that finish line at Blue Lagoon. The 3 days of grueling paddling, running, and extreme heat and humidity. When you sort of see the ocean there as you come around the corner, it must be a wonderful feeling.
It is, and the thing is, you can see the finishing banner in the ocean from so far out as well. So you just like the excitement builds the closer you get to it. The banks are always lined with hundreds of spectators supporting you as you cross the finish. So it really is a truly finish and feeling to get there. Yeah, it always does make me smile. I've used to train on Blue Lagoon with Lee McGregor and his squad, so I know the bridges so well, and I know, okay, when I get to this bridge, I have X amount of kilometers left, and I just start counting down the bridges as I get closer, and it just gets more and more exciting as I get closer. So yeah, it is super satisfying to cross that finish line in Blue Lagoon, and yeah, it's really great.
What's it like having a target on your back going for number 4?
Always have loved the pressure. Always adds excitement to the race. And yeah, I mean, I think all we can do is hope for a clean race in the doozy. Like as we've mentioned before, there's so much that could potentially go wrong. So I think my mind is less focused on the target on my back and more focused on the task ahead, just to get myself to the end, safely and as quickly as possible. But yeah.
If we can just bounce a couple of days forward and take us to 2 or 3 days before the race, how do you wind down and what is your night before any race like?
It's a good question. I think, yeah, every athlete has their own little ritual that they do to get them in the zone. For me, it's, a quiet night. I like to get to bed as early as possible, make sure my sleep's all on track before race day. I like to lay out my kits like properly so I can kind of see everything and everything's organized, and it just like calms my head to know that everything's ready for me to jump up the next morning, slip it on, and I'm pretty much ready to go. It takes preparation, like putting stickers on boats and just like almost mindless things that are just keeping you calm throughout the day, but kind of getting you ready for the race the next day. I also just like to make sure that I'm out of the sun as much as possible, getting the rest and kind of being off my feet as much as possible. Yeah, as well as, like I might stretch and roll and just make sure that my body's feeling really good for the next day. Yeah, just try to keep the heart rate low and as calm as possible before racing.
Well, we wish you all the best. It's been wonderful chatting. A week or so to go before the 2025 Doozy Canoe Marathon. Defending champion Christy McKenzie, it's been an absolute pleasure and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Lovely stuff. And hopefully we'll be talking to Christy when she's once again got that gold medal around her neck as a 4-time Doozy Canoe Marathon champion. That's tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. I'm going to paddle my way out of here and tell you, as I always do every night, be nice to each other. Until next time, bye for now.